The conference hall was silent. Not the good kind of silence that came from peace. This was the silence of fear. Ambassador Jathara stood in the center of the chamber, her 4 arms trembling. Around her, representatives from 847 different species waited for her to speak. She had served the Galactic Council for 300 years. In all that time, she had never seen such terror in the eyes of so many leaders. These were civilizations that had existed for millions of years. They had survived wars, plagues, and natural disasters. But nothing had prepared them for the Devourers. The first attack came 6 months ago. A mining colony on the edge of the Andromeda sector simply vanished. When scout ships arrived, they found nothing. No buildings, no bodies, not even rocks or dirt. Just empty space where a planet used to be. The entire world had been consumed. High Commander Vraxis stepped forward. His scales were usually bright green, but now they looked dull and gray. He activated the hologram display in the center of the room. Images of destruction filled the air above them. "We have lost 42 worlds," Vraxis said. His voice was rough with exhaustion. "That is 42 planets completely destroyed. Gone. We estimate 12 billion lives lost." A gasp went through the chamber. 12 billion. The number was too large to understand. Jathara felt her chest tighten. "What are these Devourers?" someone asked from the back of the room. Vraxis touched the controls. The hologram changed to show a creature. It was massive and dark, with thousands of writhing tentacles. But it was not just one creature. The image zoomed out to show millions of them, all connected by glowing threads of energy. "They are a hive mind," Vraxis explained. "They think as one, they move as one, and they have only one purpose: to consume. They eat everything. Rock, metal, organic matter, even the atmosphere. They leave nothing behind." "Can we fight them?" Another voice called out. Vraxis looked down. That was answer enough. But he spoke anyway. "We sent our combined fleet, 5,000 warships from 30 different species, the best weapons in the galaxy. We engaged them near the Theta Nebula." He paused. Jathara could see pain in his eyes. "Only 3 ships came back," Vraxis continued. 3 ships out of 5,000. The Devourers destroyed the rest in less than 4 hours. Our weapons barely scratched them. And every ship they destroyed, they consumed. They are growing stronger with every battle." The room erupted in panicked voices. Some species began shouting in their native languages. Others simply stared in shock. The Galactic Council had maintained peace for 50,000 years. They had treaties and laws and diplomatic solutions for everything. But this enemy did not care about peace. This enemy could not be reasoned with. Jathara raised one of her arms. Slowly the chamber grew quiet again. "There must be something we can do," she said. "Some weapon we have not tried. Some ally we have not called." Vraxis shook his head. "We have tried everything. We have used every weapon known to galactic civilization. We have called upon every military alliance. There is no one left to ask for help." "What about the quarantine zones?" someone suggested. "There are primitive civilizations in some of those sectors. Perhaps one of them could help." Several council members laughed bitterly at that suggestion. Primitive civilizations? What could they possibly do against a threat that had defeated the greatest military forces in the galaxy? But Jathara did not laugh. She was thinking. The Milky Way galaxy had been marked as a quarantine zone 500,000 years ago. The Council had decided the species there were too young, too violent, too dangerous to contact. They were to be left alone until they matured. But desperate times called for desperate measures. "The Milky Way," she said suddenly. "There is a species there. They call themselves humans. Our deep space probes have detected quantum signatures from their world. They are using advanced technology. They are spacefaring." Vraxis turned to look at her. "The humans? They are listed as primitive, aggressive, dangerous." The Council voted to avoid contact with them. "Yes," Jathara said. "But that vote was made a very long time ago. They may have changed. They may have grown. And right now, they are the only ones we have not asked." The chamber fell silent again. Every eye turned to look at Jathara. What she was suggesting was against all council protocol. The quarantine zones existed for good reasons. But what choice did they have? If we do nothing, Jathara continued, we will all die. The Devourers are moving toward the core galaxies. In 3 months they will reach the heart of council space. We need help. Any help. Even from humans. After a long pause, Vraxis nodded slowly. Very well. We will send a message. But I do not think it will help. If we cannot stop the Devourers, with all our technology and millions of years of knowledge, what can a primitive species possibly do? Jathara did not answer. She did not know, but she had to try. 2 hours later, she stood in the communications room. The technician had prepared the message. It would be broadcast on all frequencies toward the Milky Way galaxy, toward Earth. The message was simple. We are the Galactic Council. We represent 847 civilized species. We are under attack by an enemy we cannot defeat. Our worlds are being destroyed. Our people are dying. If anyone can hear this message, we need help. Please. We are desperate. Anyone who can hear this, please help us. The technician looked at Jathara. She nodded. The message was sent. Now all they could do was wait. And hope. Hope that someone in that distant galaxy would hear their cry for help. Hope that they would care. Hope that they would come. But hope was all they had left. Dr. Sarah Chen was drinking her 3rd cup of coffee when the alert came through. It was 2 a.m. at the SETI Quantum Array facility in New Mexico. She had been on night shift for the past week, watching endless streams of data from deep space. Most nights nothing happened. Tonight was different. The computer screen flashed red. Then it began to beep. Not the usual random noise they sometimes picked up. This was a signal. A clear, structured, intelligent signal. Sarah sat up straight, her tiredness forgotten. Her hands shook as she began recording the data. The signal was coming from far away, very far away, beyond anything humanity had ever detected before. She ran it through the translation program. The computer worked for several minutes, analyzing patterns, comparing frequencies, building a language map. Then text began appearing on her screen. Sarah read the words. Then she read them again. Her heart was pounding. We are the Galactic Council. We represent 847 civilized species. We are under attack by an enemy we cannot defeat. Our worlds are being destroyed. Our people are dying. If anyone can hear this message, we need help. She grabbed her phone and called the director. He answered after 5 rings, his voice heavy with sleep. This better be important, Chen. We got a message, Sarah said. Her voice was barely a whisper. From aliens. They are asking for help. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, I will be there in 20 minutes. Within 6 hours, the facility was full of people. Scientists, military officers, government officials. Everyone wanted to see the message. Everyone wanted to know if it was real. Sarah played the recording over and over. She showed them the translation. She explained the quantum frequency. There was no doubt. This was not a hoax. This was not a test. This was real. Aliens existed, and they were in trouble. The news spread across Earth like wildfire. Within 24 hours, every person on the planet knew. Aliens were real. They had been watching humanity, and now they needed help. President Elena Vasquez called an emergency meeting of the United Defense Coalition. Leaders from every nation gathered in Geneva. The room was filled with nervous energy. We need to decide how to respond, President Vasquez said. She looked tired but determined. We have never faced a decision like this before. Some argued they should ignore the message. It could be a trap. Maybe the aliens wanted to lure humanity into deep space and attack them. Others said humanity was not ready. They had only been spacefaring for 180 years. What could they do against an enemy that had defeated 847 alien species? But Admiral Marcus Wolf disagreed. He was an old soldier with gray hair and steady eyes. He had commanded the human defense fleet for 20 years. We have to help them, he said simply. Why? Someone asked. They are not our problem. Let them fight their own war. Wolf stood up. Because if we do not help them, we will be next. The message said these devourers are destroying entire worlds. If they finish with the Galactic Council, do you think they will stop? No, they will keep coming. And eventually they will reach Earth. The room fell silent. Everyone knew he was right. There is another reason, Wolf continued. For centuries we have wondered if we were alone in the universe. Now we know we are not. And the first thing we hear is a cry for help. What kind of species would we be if we turned our backs? What does that say about humanity? President Vasquez nodded slowly. You are right, Admiral. We will respond. But we must be careful. We do not know what we are walking into. Sarah was called in to help compose the response. She worked with a team of linguists and scientists. They debated every word. The message had to be clear. It had to be strong. But it also had to be careful. They could not reveal too much about human capabilities. After 12 hours of work, they had their message. It was short, simple, message received. Humanity is coming. Hold the line. They transmitted it toward the coordinates included in the alien message. Then they waited. 2 days later, they received a response. It was from Ambassador Jithara. Her message was full of gratitude and relief. She provided more details about the Devourers. She sent tactical data. She gave them coordinates for a meeting point called the Bastion System. She also expressed surprise. She had not expected such a quick response. She had not expected humanity to agree to help at all. The Council records showed humans as primitive and dangerous. Sarah smiled when she read that part. Primitive. That word would come back to haunt them. Because what the Galactic Council did not know was that humanity had been preparing for war among the stars for nearly 2 centuries. When they first achieved faster-than-light travel, they encountered automated warning buoys at the edge of their solar system. The buoys made it clear, stay in your sector, do not explore, do not expand. Most species would have obeyed. But humans were not like most species. The warning made them suspicious, made them cautious, made them prepare, so humanity built warships, not exploration vessels, not colony ships, warships. They developed weapons that even they found frightening. They created military doctrines based on one simple principle. If we ever meet hostile aliens, we must be able to win. Now that preparation would be tested, Admiral Wolf stood on the bridge of the UDS Vengeance, the flagship of the human expeditionary force. Around him, 500 warships prepared for departure. They were sleek and dark, built for speed and destruction. Each one carried enough firepower to level a continent. Captain Yuki Tanaka approached him. She was young but brilliant, in charge of the Experimental Weapons Division. All ships are ready, Admiral. We can leave when you give the order. Wolf looked at the star map. The Bastion system was far away, but their FTL drives were fast, much faster than anything the Galactic Council used. They would arrive in 3 weeks. He thought about the message, about desperate aliens begging for help, about an enemy that consumed entire worlds, about humanity taking its first real step onto the galactic stage. Give the order, he said. We are going to war. The fleet jumped into FTL space, 500 human warships disappearing in flashes of blue light. They were going to answer the call. They were going to help. But the Galactic Council had no idea what was really coming. Humanity was not coming to save them. Humanity was coming to teach the galaxy a very important lesson. When humans went to war, they did not fight to win. They fought to make absolutely certain the enemy could never threaten anyone ever again. Ambassador Jithara stood at the observation deck of the Bastion station. Through the massive windows she could see the remains of the Council fleet. 12,000 ships, that was all that remained from an alliance that once commanded millions of vessels. The ships looked tired. Many had scorch marks from battles with the Devourers. Some were held together with emergency repairs. Every single one had lost crew members. The mood throughout the fleet was dark. High Commander Vraxis joined her at the window. His scales had not regained their color. He looked like he had aged 100 years in the past few months. The humans will arrive today, he said quietly. Jithara nodded. She felt both hope and worry. Hope that the humans could help. Worry that she had made a terrible mistake. How many ships are they bringing? Vraxis asked. They said 500. Vraxis let out a bitter laugh. 500 ships, against an enemy that destroyed 5,000 of ours. What can 500 possibly do? Jithara did not answer. She had been wondering the same thing. An alarm sounded. A technician called out from his station. Jump signatures detected. Multiple contacts emerging from FTL. Everyone rushed to the windows. Space began to shimmer. Then the human fleet arrived. Jithara gasped. She had never seen ships like these before. Council ships were elegant. They were built for exploration and diplomacy, only armed when necessary. Even their warships had curved lines and bright colors. Human ships were different. They were angular and dark. They looked like weapons themselves. There was no decoration, no unnecessary features. Every line, every surface seemed designed for one purpose: war. 500 of them appeared in perfect formation. They moved with precision that suggested years of military training. Their hulls were black and gray, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. "This is impossible," a technician whispered. "Their FTL signatures are wrong. No ship should be able to travel that fast." Vraxis stared at the human fleet. For the first time in months, Jathara saw something besides despair in his eyes. She saw surprise. Maybe even fear. "What are they?" he asked quietly. A communication request came through. It was from the lead human ship. The UDS Vengeance. Jathara accepted the call. A human face appeared on the screen. It was an older male with gray hair and hard eyes. He wore a military uniform. "I am Admiral Marcus Wolf of the Human Defense Fleet. We received your distress call. We are here to help." Jathara bowed. "Thank you, Admiral. I am Ambassador Jathara of the Galactic Council. We are grateful you came. But I must ask, is this all? 500 ships?" The human's expression did not change. "This is more than enough, Ambassador. We are not here to match your enemy in numbers. We are here to eliminate them." "Eliminate them?" Vraxis stepped forward. "We have been fighting these devourers for months. They destroyed 5,000 of our best warships. They consume everything in their path. What makes you think 500 ships can stop them?" Admiral Wolf looked at Vraxis. "Because we do not fight the way you do, Commander. Humans have been at war with each other for our entire history. We learned very important lessons. We learned that there is only one way to truly win a war." "And what is that?" Vraxis asked. "Total destruction of the enemy's ability to ever fight again." The words hung in the air. Jathara felt a chill run down her spine. There was something in the Admiral's voice. Something cold. "Something absolute. We need to discuss strategy," Vraxis said. "Our scouts report that a large Devourer fleet is heading this way. They will arrive in approximately 6 hours. We should coordinate our forces." "Understood," Wolf replied. "We will review your tactical data. In the meantime, my fleet will take up defensive positions. When the Devourers arrive, please allow us to observe their attack patterns before engaging." "Observe?" Vraxis looked shocked. "You want to just watch? We need to understand how they fight. How they move. How they coordinate. Humans believe in knowing the enemy before striking." "Do not worry, Commander. We will not let them destroy your ships." The communication ended. Jathara and Vraxis looked at each other. "I do not like this," Vraxis said. "They are too confident, too calm. What if they cannot deliver on their promises?" "Then we all die," Jathara replied simply. "But did you see their ships? Did you hear how he talked? These humans are different from us. They do not think like us. That is what worries me." 6 hours passed. The Devourer fleet emerged from the void. Sensors counted 100,000 bioships. They looked like massive insects crossed with deep-sea creatures. Each one was covered in writhing tentacles and glowing with sickly green light. The Council fleet moved into battle formation. 12,000 ships against 100,000. The math was not in their favor. The human fleet did not move. They stayed back, watching, scanning, learning. The Devourers attacked. The Council ships fired first. Energy beams and missiles streaked through space. Some hit their targets, burning holes in Devourer bioships. But the damage healed almost instantly. The ships regrew their wounds. The Devourers fired back. Their weapons were biological in nature, launching acid clouds and parasitic creatures. Council ships began to fall. Jathara watched in horror as 3 cruisers were consumed in minutes. "Why are the humans not helping?" Vraxis shouted. "We are dying out there." Then Admiral Wolf's voice came over the communication channel. "All Council ships fall back to minimum safe distance. Humans are now engaging." The human fleet moved forward. Not slowly. Not cautiously. They accelerated at speeds that should have torn the ships apart. They moved through space like predators closing in on prey. Jathara leaned forward, gripping the railing. The Devourers turned to face this new threat. They had numbers on their side. They had won every battle for months. They were confident. That confidence was about to be shattered. Admiral Wolf gave one simple order: show them what happens when you threaten our neighbors. The human ships opened fire in the galaxy, learned what true war looked like. The first volley from the human fleet was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Streaks of light crossed the void at incredible speed. These were not energy beams. These were physical projectiles moving at 99% the speed of light. Kinetic kill vehicles, simple chunks of dense metal accelerated to impossible velocities. When they hit the Devourer bioships, the results were catastrophic. The impact released more energy than a nuclear explosion. Entire sections of the Devourer fleet simply ceased to exist. Vaporized in an instant, Jaethara could not speak. She could only stare. In one strike, the humans had destroyed more Devourers than the Council had in weeks of fighting. But the humans were not finished. The second wave of weapons was different. These were missiles, but not like any the Council used. As they approached the Devourer fleet, they exploded into clouds of smaller projectiles. Thousands of them. They spread out like a metal rain. Each projectile found a target. They punched through bioship hulls and detonated inside. The Devourers tried to regenerate, but something was wrong. Their healing abilities were not working. "What are those weapons?" Vraxis demanded. A human officer responded over the communication channel. "Quantum disruption bombs. They prevent molecular reconstruction at the subatomic level. The Devourers cannot heal wounds caused by these weapons." The Devourer fleet began to panic. They had never faced an enemy that could permanently damage them. They tried to retreat, but the human ships were faster. Much faster. Human fighters swarmed through the Devourer ranks. They were small and quick, dodging the biological weapons with ease. They targeted weak points, destroying ship after ship with surgical precision. The larger human warships moved into optimal firing positions. They unleashed a new weapon, torpedoes that glowed with blue light. When they struck Devourer ships, the effect was terrifying. The torpedoes did not just destroy their targets. They sent energy pulses through the hive mind connections. One torpedo would hit one ship, and 10 other ships would convulse and die. The Devourer's greatest strength had become a weakness. Cascade torpedoes, Captain Tanaka explained. They exploit the neural links in hive mind species. 1 kill becomes 10 kills. Very efficient. Very efficient. Jaethara felt sick. These humans spoke about destruction so casually, like they were discussing the weather. 2 hours into the battle, the Devourer fleet was in chaos. They had lost over 60,000 ships. The human fleet had not lost a single vessel. Vraxis watched the battle displays in stunned silence. This should not be possible. How are they doing this? Jaethara had no answer. She was beginning to understand why the Council had quarantined humanity. These were not just warriors. These were beings who had turned warfare into a science, an art form. They had spent thousands of years fighting each other and learning from every battle. The Devourers tried one last desperate attack. They concentrated their remaining forces and charged directly at the human flagship. It was a suicide run, meant to overwhelm through sheer numbers. Admiral Wolf's voice remained calm. "Activate Sunderer Protocol, what is that?" Jaethara asked nervously. "You will see," the Admiral replied. One of the human ships broke formation. It was smaller than the others, with a strange design. It moved toward the nearby star. Then it fired a single device into the star's corona. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the star flickered. A massive solar flare erupted from its surface. But this was not a natural flare. It was directed, controlled. A beam of stellar fire that cut across space like a sword. The flare struck the charging Devourer fleet. Thousands of bioships were incinerated in seconds. The heat was so intense that even ships at the edge of the blast were damaged beyond repair. "They weaponized a star," Vraxis whispered. His voice was filled with equal parts awe and horror. After 4 hours, the battle was over. The Devourer fleet was destroyed. Every single ship. The human fleet had achieved total victory without losing a single vessel. The Council fleet remained in shocked silence. They had just witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. A perfect military victory. Admiral Wolf opened a channel to the station. Battle concluded. Enemy forces eliminated. What are your orders, Ambassador? Jaethara struggled to find words. You saved us. Thank you. We are eternally grateful. The Admiral's expression did not change. We have not saved you yet. This was one fleet. Intelligence analysis of the debris shows these Devourers came from a home cluster. We tracked their quantum signature. We know where they are from. A cold feeling settled in Jaethara's stomach. What are you saying? I am saying we need to finish this. The Devourer species has 47 homeworlds in a cluster 300 light-years from here. As long as those worlds exist, they will continue to send fleets. Continue to consume, continue to kill. Vraxis stepped forward. Are you suggesting we attack their homeworlds? That would be a war of aggression. The Council does not approve of such actions. Admiral Wolf's eyes grew hard. Commander, your species asked for our help. We came, we fought. We won. But if you want this threat truly eliminated, we must ensure it can never return. That means destroying the source, but those are entire worlds, Jathara said. Billions of Devourers live there. Most are not warriors. They are civilians. The Devourers do not have civilians, the Admiral replied coldly. They are a hive mind. Every single one is part of the collective consciousness. Every single one shares responsibility for the attacks. Every single one will grow into a new fleet eventually. Jathara felt her hands trembling. What you are describing is genocide. Wolf nodded. Yes, it is, and I understand your moral concerns. But I need you to understand something about humanity. We have fought wars of extinction before, on our own world. We know the price. We know the cost. And we know that sometimes the only way to protect innocent life is to eliminate the threat completely. He paused, letting his words sink in. You called us for help, we answered. We came here prepared to do what you cannot, what you will not. We came prepared to make the hard choice, the terrible choice, so that you would not have to. The communication channel went silent. Jathara looked at Vraxis. She saw the same conflict in his eyes that she felt in her own heart. The humans had saved them. But at what cost? And what were they about to unleash? Admiral Wolf spoke again, his voice softer now. I will give you 1 hour to discuss this with your council. But understand this, whether you approve or not, humanity will finish what we started. We did not travel across the galaxy to half-solve a problem. We will eliminate the Devourer threat completely. The only question is whether the Council stands with us or against us. The screen went dark. Jathara sat down heavily. She had thought humanity would be saviors, rescuers, heroes. She had not expected them to be executioners. The emergency council session lasted 3 hours. Representatives from 847 species argued over what humanity proposed. Some agreed that the Devourers must be destroyed completely. Others insisted that genocide could never be justified, no matter the circumstances. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the human observation room, listening to the translation. She had joined the fleet as a diplomatic advisor. Now she wondered if that had been a mistake. Admiral Wolf stood beside her, his face unreadable. We should not do this, Sarah said quietly. There has to be another way. What other way? Wolf asked. Containment? Negotiation? The Devourers have consumed 42 worlds. They do not talk. They do not surrender. They only consume. What would you have us do? I do not know. But this feels wrong. We came here to help people, not to commit mass murder. Wolf turned to look at her. His eyes were tired but determined. Dr. Chen, I have been a soldier for 40 years. I have seen war. Real war. I know what it does to people. I know the cost. But I also know what happens when you show mercy to an enemy that does not understand mercy. He gestured toward the star map showing Devourer territory. If we leave them alive, they will rebuild. They will send more fleets. More worlds will die. Maybe not today. Maybe not next year, but eventually. And when they do, it will be our fault. Because we had the chance to stop them and chose not to. Sarah had no answer to that. She knew he was right in a terrible, logical way. But it still felt wrong. The council vote came in. By a narrow margin, they authorized humanity to proceed. Many species voted against it. Others abstained. But enough agreed that the threat had to be eliminated. Jathara delivered the decision personally. She looked like she had aged decades. May the ancestors forgive us for what we are about to allow. Wolf nodded. I understand the weight of this decision, Ambassador. Know that humanity takes no pleasure in what we are about to do. But it must be done. The human fleet departed for Devourer space. The Council fleet did not follow. They chose to remain at the Bastion system. They wanted no part in what came next. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Vengeance as they approached the Devourer home cluster. Through the windows, she could see 47 planets orbiting multiple stars. Sensors showed massive populations, billions of Devourers. These worlds had no defensive fleets. All their military forces had been sent to attack Council space. The planets were vulnerable. Admiral Wolf stood at the command console. He looked at the planets for a long moment. Then he gave the order, execute obliteration protocol. Sarah closed her eyes. She could not watch. The human ships moved into position around the cluster. They deployed devices into the corona of each star, special weapons designed for one purpose, stellar manipulation. Captain Tanaka managed the operation with clinical precision. Devices synchronized. Countdown initiated. All systems nominal. Wolf stood silently, waiting. The countdown reached 0. The stars exploded, not naturally. These were forced detonations. The devices had destabilized the stellar cores, triggering premature supernovas. Multiple stars detonating at once. The blast waves expanded outward at the speed of light. They struck the Devourer planets with unimaginable force. Entire worlds were vaporized in seconds. Atmospheres stripped away. Oceans boiled. Continents melted. 47 planets. Billions of lives. Gone. The human fleet watched from a safe distance. No one spoke. Even the experienced officers looked shaken. They had known this would happen, but seeing it was different. Sarah opened her eyes. The view screen showed expanding clouds of stellar debris where planets had once orbited. She felt tears on her face. "What have we done?" she whispered. Wolf did not answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "We did what was necessary. We eliminated a threat that would have destroyed countless other worlds. We saved billions of lives by taking billions of lives. Does that make it right?" "No," Wolf replied. "It just makes it necessary. There is a difference." News of what happened spread through the galaxy within days. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions. Species that had voted for the action now questioned their choice. Species that had voted against it condemned humanity as monsters. The galaxy was divided. Some praised humanity as saviors who did what no one else could. Others feared humanity as potential conquerors who had shown they were willing to commit genocide. Jathara found herself in an impossible position. She had called humanity for help. She had voted to allow them to proceed. Now she had to live with the consequences. She met with Admiral Wolf one last time before the human fleet returned to Earth. "Do you regret what you did?" she asked. Wolf thought carefully before answering. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that we live in a universe where such actions are required. But I do not regret protecting innocent lives from a threat that would have killed them all. The galaxy is afraid of us now." "Yes," Wolf agreed. "And perhaps that is not entirely bad. Sometimes fear prevents conflict. Sometimes the threat of overwhelming force keeps the peace better than treaties. Is that how humanity wants to be known? As the species everyone fears?" "No," Wolf said firmly. "We want to be known as the species that answered when you called for help. As the species that did what needed to be done, no matter how hard. As the species that values life enough to protect it at any cost." He paused. "But we also understand that sometimes protection requires terrible choices, and we are willing to make those choices so that others do not have to." Jathara nodded slowly. She still did not know if calling humanity had been right, but she knew that without them, the Council would have fallen. The Devourers would have consumed everything. Back on Earth, Sarah Chen resigned from the military. She could not continue serving after what she had witnessed. Instead, she founded a new organization, the Galactic Peace Corps, an initiative designed to show the galaxy the other side of humanity. The side that built and created instead of destroyed. Admiral Wolf retired. He had done his duty. He had protected humanity and its new allies. But the weight of those 47 worlds haunted him. He spent his remaining years working with veterans, helping others cope with the terrible things war required. The galaxy would never forget what happened. The obliteration of the devourer species became a defining moment in galactic history. The moment when humanity showed it was both the greatest hope and the deepest fear of the civilized galaxy. They had answered the cry for help. They had delivered obliteration, and now they would have to live with what that meant. 6 months after the obliteration, the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. The Galactic Council convened in their grand chamber for the first time since the war ended. Every species sent representatives. Everyone wanted to discuss humanity. The chamber was divided into 3 main groups. The grateful sat on the right side. These were species whose worlds had been directly threatened by the devourers. They believed humanity had saved them. They wanted humans as permanent allies and members of the council. Species like the Vrithani, who had lost 3 colony worlds, spoke passionately about how humanity had succeeded where everyone else failed. The fearful occupied the left side. These species had not been in immediate danger from the devourers. They saw only that humanity had destroyed 47 worlds and billions of lives. They argued for a new quarantine. They wanted humanity isolated, monitored, prevented from using such weapons ever again. The Zephyri delegation called humanity a greater threat than the devourers had ever been. The pragmatic held the center. These species were torn. They acknowledged that humanity had saved the galaxy, but they were deeply uncomfortable with the methods used. They proposed restrictions, oversight, treaties that would limit human military capabilities while still allowing cooperation. Ambassador Jathara listened to days of debate. She had not slept well since the obliteration. Every night she saw those 47 worlds burning in her dreams. Finally, it was time for humanity to respond. President Elena Vasquez herself had come to address the council. She stood at the central podium, looking at the gathered species. The chamber fell silent. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began. Her voice was clear and strong. "I come before you today to address the concerns that have been raised about my species. I come to offer humanity's perspective. And I come to give you a choice." She paused, letting her words settle. 6 months ago, you sent a desperate message into the void. You were dying. Your fleets were destroyed. Your worlds were being consumed. You asked for help from anyone who could hear you. We heard, we came. We fought, we won. Some of you are grateful. You understand that we saved billions of lives by ending the devourer threat permanently. You see us as allies, as friends. We value that friendship. Others among you are afraid. You look at our weapons and our methods and you see monsters. You fear that we might turn those weapons against you. That fear is not unreasonable. We are powerful. We are capable of terrible destruction. You have seen what we can do. President Vasquez looked directly at the fearful section. So let me be clear about something. Humanity did not come here to conquer. We did not come here to dominate. We came because it was the right thing to do. Because when someone cries for help, you answer. That is who we are. But I will not apologize for how we answered. We did what was necessary. We eliminated a threat that would have destroyed countless worlds. Yes, we used terrible weapons. Yes, we made a hard choice. But that choice saved your civilizations. She turned to address the entire assembly. There is something you should know about humanity. Something that might help you understand us better. The weapons we used against the devourers? Those were not our most powerful weapons. Not even close. A shocked murmur ran through the chamber. We have weapons that can tear holes in reality. Weapons that can turn planets inside out. Weapons so destructive that we sealed them away centuries ago and swore never to use them. We brought none of those to this war. We used only what was necessary, only what was proportionate to the threat. The silence in the chamber was absolute. I tell you this not to threaten you. I tell you this so you understand. Humanity has the power to destroy, but we choose not to. We choose to build, to create, to protect. We choose to use our power only when there is no other option. Now you must make a choice. You can accept humanity as a member of the galactic community. We will share our technology, our knowledge, our protection. We will help you build a stronger, safer galaxy, or you can reject us. You can isolate us. You can try to contain us. We will respect that choice. We will return to our sector of space. We will leave you alone. President Vasquez's voice grew softer but more intense. But understand this. If you reject us, you reject the protection we offer. If another threat emerges, if another species decides to consume or conquer, do not expect us to answer your call again. We will not come running to save those who chose to treat us as enemies. The choice is yours. We do not need the Council. We are strong enough to stand alone. But we believe the galaxy is better when species work together, when they protect each other, when they answer the call for help. She stepped back from the podium. I await your decision. The Council debated for 3 more days. The vote was held in a closed session. Species argued late into the night. Some relationships were damaged. New alliances were formed. In the end, the decision was made. By a vote of 489 to 358, humanity was granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. There were conditions. Humanity would be subject to restrictions on weapon deployment. They would allow limited inspections of their military capabilities. They would agree to use force only as a last resort, and only with Council approval. President Vasquez accepted the conditions. She knew they would not last forever. As humanity proved itself, the restrictions would ease. Trust would grow, or it would not. Time would tell. Jathara was appointed as the official human liaison. She would be the bridge between humanity and the Council. It was fitting, she thought. She had made the call that brought them here. Now she would help manage the consequences. She met with President Vasquez after the vote. I still do not know if I did the right thing, Jathara admitted. Calling humanity, allowing the obliteration, so many died. President Vasquez nodded. I understand. The burden of difficult decisions never fully goes away. But consider this. How many billions of lives were saved? How many worlds were protected? The devourers would have consumed everything. Now they are gone. The galaxy is safe. At what cost? At a terrible cost, Vasquez agreed. But that is the nature of survival. Sometimes there are no good choices. Only necessary ones. Meanwhile, Dr. Sarah Chen had established the Galactic Peace Corps. Human volunteers began arriving in Council space. Engineers helped rebuild destroyed worlds. Doctors provided medical care. Teachers shared knowledge. Artists created beauty. Slowly, the galaxy began to see another side of humanity. Not just the warriors and the weapons, but the dreamers and the builders. The species that could be gentle as well as fierce. It would take time. Trust was not built in days or months, but it was being built. Admiral Wolf, now retired, watched these developments from Earth. He had given testimony to multiple investigations about the obliteration. He had answered every question honestly. He stood by his decisions, but he was glad he did not have to make such choices anymore. One evening he received a message from deep space. It was marked urgent. He opened it. The message was from an automated probe, one of thousands humanity had deployed throughout the galaxy after the war. This probe had detected something disturbing. In the void between galaxies, something was moving. Something massive. Something that had been dormant for millions of years. The probe's analysis suggested it had been awakened by the multiple supernova detonations. By the energy released during the obliteration, Wolf read the report carefully. Then he forwarded it to President Vasquez with a simple note. We may have a new problem. President Vasquez addressed humanity that evening. She spoke from the Capitol building in Geneva, her face projected on screens around the world. 6 months ago, we answered a call for help. We traveled across the galaxy to fight an enemy that threatened all civilized life. We won, but victory came at a price. We had to make choices that will haunt us forever. We had to do things that changed how the galaxy sees us. Some species now call us heroes. Others call us monsters. The truth is probably somewhere in between. We are neither purely good nor purely evil. We are human. We are capable of great compassion and terrible violence. We can build and we can destroy. Now we must prove to the galaxy that we are more than our weapons. We must show them our art, our culture, our kindness. We must demonstrate that the strength that saved them can also be used to build a better future. She paused. But make no mistake. If another threat emerges, if innocent lives are in danger, humanity will answer the call again. We will do what is necessary. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is our promise to the galaxy. And that is our burden to bear. The galaxy cried for help. We answered with obliteration. Now we must prove that we can answer with creation as well. We must show them the best of humanity, before they forget everything but the worst. The broadcast ended. Across Earth, people sat in quiet reflection. They knew their species had changed. They had stepped onto the galactic stage. They could never go back. In Council space, Jathara watched the same broadcast. She thought about the future, about the complex relationship between humanity and the rest of the galaxy, about hope and fear and the thin line between them. And in the void between galaxies, something ancient stirred, something drawn by the light of dying stars, something that would soon test whether the galaxy had made the right choice, whether they had been wise to accept humanity as an ally, or whether they had invited something far more dangerous than the Devourer. Admiral Zexathara stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Dawn, watching the stars streak past through the viewing port. His forearms moved gracefully across the command console while his golden eyes focused on the tactical display. The Third Fleet of the Galactic Empire spread out behind him like a deadly swarm of metal wasps, each ship gleaming with the polished perfection that marked Imperial technology. "Admiral, we are approaching the target system," reported Commander Veltar from the navigation station. "The primitive world they call Earth should be visible soon." Zexathara's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smile among his species. Another conquest, another world to add to the Empire's vast collection. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Empire had expanded across the galaxy, bringing civilization to the primitive races scattered among the stars. Some species joined willingly after seeing the Empire's superior technology. Others required more persuasion. The humans would require persuasion. Intelligence reports painted them as a young species, barely 200 years into their industrial age. They had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel and possessed crude energy weapons. Their ships were small, inefficient, and built with primitive materials like steel and titanium instead of the advanced composites used by civilized races. "Sir, we are entering the outer system now," announced the sensor operator. "Initial scans show..." "This is strange." Zexathara's attention sharpened. "Report. The planetary defenses are not what we expected, Admiral. There are no orbital defense platforms around the third planet. No military installations on their moon. Their space traffic appears to be mostly commercial vessels moving between their planet and what appears to be mining operations in the asteroid belt." The Admiral frowned. Most primitive species at least attempted to defend their homeworld when the Empire arrived. They built crude weapons platforms or assembled their pathetic fleets in a desperate last stand. The humans seem to be ignoring them entirely. "Perhaps they have not detected us yet," suggested Commander Veltar. "Impossible. Our fleet displacement is massive enough to be detected by any civilization with basic space technology." Zexathara studied the tactical display more carefully. "Show me these mining operations." The main screen shifted to display the asteroid belt between the fourth and fifth planets. Thousands of asteroids drifted in their ancient orbits, many showing signs of human industrial activity. Mining ships moved between the larger rocks, extracting metals and other resources. It looked exactly like what a primitive species would do when they first reached their asteroid belt. "Wait," said the sensor operator, his voice rising with confusion. "Admiral, there is something else. I am detecting a massive energy signature near the largest asteroid cluster. Show me." The screen zoomed in on a section of the asteroid belt where several large rocks had been grouped together. At first it looked like a natural formation, but as the image sharpened, details became clear that made no sense. What they were looking at was definitely artificial, but it was unlike any spacecraft in the Imperial database. The structure appeared to be built from actual asteroids, welded and fused together into a single massive object. Hull plating from human ships covered sections of the rocky surface, while what looked like engine exhausts protruded from various points. The whole thing was easily 3 times the size of Admiral Zexathara's flagship. "That cannot be a ship," Commander Veltar said, staring at the display. "It is too large. No species builds ships that size from asteroid material." The sensor operator worked frantically at his station. "Admiral, I'm reading massive power signatures from inside that object. Whatever it is definitely artificial and it is definitely active." As they watched, crude human writing became visible along one side of the massive structure. The letters were painted in simple white paint across the dark asteroid surface. "UNSV Absolute Unit." Zexathara felt a chill run through his body. The humans had built something that defied every rule of spacecraft design he knew. Ships were supposed to be sleek, efficient, and built from lightweight materials. This thing looked like someone had decided to hollow out several asteroids and turn them into a single vessel. "Admiral," the communications officer called out. We are receiving a transmission from the human vessel. Put it through. The main screen flickered and showed the interior of what appeared to be a command center carved directly into rock. A human female in a simple blue uniform sat in a chair that looked like it had been welded together from scrap metal. Behind her, other humans worked at stations that appeared to be built into the asteroid walls themselves. "Greetings," the human said in perfectly clear Galactic standard. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Vessel Absolute Unit. We have been expecting you." Zexathara composed himself quickly. "I am Admiral Zexathara of the 3rd Imperial Fleet. By order of the Galactic Empire, this system is now under Imperial control. You will surrender immediately or face the consequences." Captain Chen smiled, and something about that expression made the Admiral uncomfortable. "We appreciate the offer, Admiral, but we will have to decline. Earth is not interested in joining your empire." "You do not understand," Zexathara said, his voice hardening. "This is not a negotiation. Look around you. You face the might of an entire Imperial fleet. Your single vessel, no matter how large, cannot stand against us." "You might be surprised," Captain Chen replied calmly. "Would you like to find out?" The transmission ended. Commander Veltar looked at his admiral with confusion. "Sir, surely they cannot be serious. That is just one ship against our entire fleet." Zexathara studied the massive asteroid ship on his display. Something about this situation felt wrong. The humans were acting too confident, too calm. Either they were completely insane or they knew something the Empire did not. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Target their engines and weapon systems. Try to disable rather than destroy. I want to understand what they think they are doing." The 3rd Fleet moved into attack formation with practiced efficiency. 27 Imperial cruisers and destroyers took position around the human vessel, their energy weapons charging and missile tubes loading. The Crimson Dawn led the formation, its main plasma cannon aimed directly at the center of the asteroid ship. "All ships report ready." "Admiral," announced the tactical officer. Zexathara looked at the massive human vessel one more time. It just sat there in space, not moving, not raising shields, not powering weapons. Either the humans were paralyzed with fear, or this was the most elaborate suicide mission in galactic history. Fire. 27 Imperial warships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma beams lanced across space, striking the asteroid hull of the human vessel. Energy missiles followed, their warheads designed to overload enemy shields and disable ship systems. The attack should have ended the battle in seconds. Imperial weapons were designed to penetrate any known defensive system and disable ships with surgical precision. Instead, the plasma beams struck the asteroid surface and simply spread out across the rock like water hitting a stone. The missiles exploded against the hull and accomplished nothing more than blackening small sections of the surface. The massive human ship sat in space completely undamaged. "Impossible," whispered Commander Veltar. Zexathara stared at the tactical display in shock. Nothing could absorb that much firepower without taking damage. The humans had not even raised energy shields. They were just sitting there, letting Imperial weapons strike their ship, and somehow remaining completely unaffected. Then the asteroid ship began to move. For something that size, it should have been slow and clumsy. Instead, it turned with surprising grace and began accelerating toward the Imperial fleet. As it moved, sections of the asteroid hull began to open like flower petals, revealing dark spaces within. "Admiral," the sensor operator said, his voice tight with fear, "I am detecting massive weapon signatures from inside that ship. Energy levels are off our scales." The human vessel completed its turn and faced the Imperial fleet directly. In the silence of space, it looked like an ancient mountain that had somehow learned to fly and decided to go to war. Captain Sarah Chen sat in her command chair, carved directly from the asteroid rock that surrounded her. The bridge of the Absolute Unit looked nothing like the sleek control rooms of other spacefaring civilizations. Instead of elegant curves and smooth surfaces, everything was built from practical necessity. Control panels were welded to rock walls, cables ran through carved channels in the stone, and the main viewing screen was simply a large monitor bolted to what used to be the interior wall of an asteroid. "Ma'am, the Imperial fleet has fired on us," reported Lieutenant Rodriguez from the weapons station. "Plasma beams and energy missiles. No damage to report." Sarah nodded calmly. She had expected this. The Empire always attacked first and asked questions later. It was their way of showing primitive species how outclassed they were. Unfortunately for them, humans had a different approach to shipbuilding than anyone else in the galaxy. "How thick is our hull at the impact points?" she asked. "Approximately 200 meters of solid rock plus the titanium plating," came the reply. "Their weapons are just making scorch marks on the surface," Sarah smiled. When human engineers first learned that other species built their ships from lightweight materials for speed and efficiency, they had asked a simple question: why not just make the ship thick enough that weapons cannot hurt it? The answer, according to every other civilization, was that such a ship would be too heavy and too slow to be practical. Humans had decided to test that theory. "All stations, report status," Sarah ordered. "Engineering reports all reactors online," called out Chief Engineer Kowalski from his station. "Fusion plants 1 through 15 are running at optimal efficiency. We have power to spare." "Navigation reports ready for movement," announced Ensign Park. "All engine clusters responding normally. Weapon systems are armed and ready," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported with obvious excitement. "All batteries loaded and targeting systems locked on Imperial vessels." Sarah stood up from her chair and walked to the main viewing screen. Through the reinforced transparent aluminum, she could see the Imperial fleet spread out before them. Their ships were beautiful in their own way, sleek, elegant vessels that looked like they had been designed by artists rather than engineers. Each one was probably fast, maneuverable, and packed with advanced technology. They were also about to learn why humans did not care about elegance. "Open a channel to the Imperial flagship," Sarah ordered. The communications officer worked at his panel. "Channel open, Captain." The main screen split to show Admiral Zexathera on his pristine bridge. The alien looked confused and somewhat angry. Behind him, other members of his crew moved with the precise efficiency that marked advanced civilizations. "This is impossible," the Admiral said without preamble. "Our weapons should have destroyed your vessel. What kind of defensive technology are you using?" Sarah clasped her hands behind her back. "It is called rock, Admiral." "Lots and lots of rock. When humans build a ship, we make sure it can take a hit." "That is not how space combat works," Zexathera protested. "Ships must be fast and maneuverable. You cannot simply make them too heavy to damage." "Watch us," Sarah replied and cut the transmission. She turned to face her crew. These men and women had volunteered for what everyone thought was a suicide mission. When the Empire's approach was detected, Earth's governments had argued about what to do. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to gather the entire human fleet for a desperate last stand. The military engineers had proposed a different option. They had spent the last 50 years building mining and construction platforms in the asteroid belt. What if, instead of building traditional warships, they simply turned some asteroids into the biggest guns the galaxy had ever seen? Everyone thought it was crazy. Sarah had volunteered to command the prototype. "Ensign Park, take us forward," she ordered. "Nice and slow. Let them get a good look at what they are dealing with." The Absolute unit began to move. Despite its massive size, the ship accelerated smoothly. Human engineers had solved the problem of moving something so large by the simple expedient of attaching enough engines to it. Fusion rockets protruded from every available surface, their combined thrust capable of moving mountains, which was exactly what they were doing. As the asteroid ship approached the Imperial fleet, weapon ports began to open along its hull. What the Empire had taken for natural craters and mining excavations revealed themselves to be carefully camouflaged gun emplacements. Massive barrel-like structures extended from the rock surface as railgun systems came online. "Admiral," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, "all weapon systems report ready to fire. We have targeting locks on every ship in their fleet." Sarah nodded. "Weapons free. Show them what human engineering looks like." The Absolute unit opened fire. The weapons that emerged from the asteroid hull were not the elegant energy beams favored by advanced civilizations. Instead, massive railguns fired chunks of tungsten and steel at significant fractions of light speed. Missile silos launched simple but effective kinetic warheads. Most impressively, several of the larger weapon systems began hurling entire small asteroids at the Imperial fleet using magnetic accelerators. The effect was immediate and devastating. Admiral Zexathera watched in horror as his beautiful, efficient warships began to buckle and break under the assault. Imperial energy shields designed to deflect plasma beams and particle weapons proved useless against simple chunks of matter traveling at incredible speeds. The elegant armor plating that protected against energy weapons crumpled like paper when hit by multi-ton projectiles. "Evasive maneuvers," he shouted, but his ships were too close together and the human weapons fired too fast. The primitive kinetic projectiles seemed to be everywhere at once. The Imperial destroyer Swift Victory took a direct hit from what appeared to be a small moon traveling at impossible speed. The ship's entire midsection simply ceased to exist. The cruiser Stellar Pride tried to retreat, but found itself in the path of a stream of tungsten rounds that punched through its hull like bullets through tissue paper. "Sir, we are losing ships," Commander Veltar reported, his voice tight with panic. "Our shields cannot stop their weapons. They are using primitive projectile technology, but the velocities are enormous." Zexthera could not understand what he was seeing. The humans were winning a space battle using technology that was thousands of years old. They were throwing rocks, essentially, but throwing them so hard and so fast that the most advanced defensive systems in the galaxy could not stop them. "Return fire," he ordered desperately. "All ships concentrate fire on that asteroid ship." The remaining Imperial vessels turned their weapons on the Absolute unit and fired everything they had. Plasma cannons, particle beams, fusion missiles, and quantum torpedoes struck the massive human vessel in a coordinated barrage that should have reduced any ship to atomic particles. The asteroid ship continued firing without pause. The Imperial weapons left black scorch marks on its hull and nothing more. "Captain," Chief Engineer Kowalski reported over the comm system, "the Empire boys are tickling us again. Hull temperature has risen by about 2 degrees. Should I turn on the cooling systems?" Sarah almost laughed. "Not necessary, Chief. How are our ammunition supplies?" "We have enough tungsten rods to fight for about 6 months," came the reply. "And the asteroid belt has plenty more rocks if we need them." The Imperial fleet was in full retreat now, their elegant formations broken and scattered. Several ships trailed atmosphere and debris as they tried to escape the range of the human weapons. Others simply tumbled through space, their crews either dead or unconscious. Sarah watched them go with satisfaction. The first test of human military engineering had been a complete success. The Empire had come expecting to face a primitive species with crude weapons and simple tactics. Instead, they had encountered humans, who looked at the problem of space combat and decided that the best defense was making your ship too tough to hurt, and the best offense was making your weapons impossible to stop. The galaxy was about to learn a very important lesson about human engineering. When in doubt, make it bigger and add more guns. Admiral Zexthera gripped the command rail of his flagship as another Imperial cruiser exploded in the distance. The Crimson Dawn shook from the impact of human weapons striking its hull, and warning lights flashed across every control panel on the bridge. In 30 years of naval service, he had never seen anything like this. "Sir, the Golden Spear has lost main power," reported Commander Veltar, his forearms working frantically at his station.
"The Void Hunter is venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches."
"The Night's Edge has gone completely silent." The Admiral stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Half of his fleet was either destroyed or disabled, and they had not managed to inflict any significant damage on the human vessel. Every rule of space combat that he had learned was proving useless against these primitives. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Our intelligence report said they barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Their technology should be centuries behind ours." The sensor operator looked up from his station with fear in his eyes. "Admiral, I think I understand what they are doing. They are not using energy weapons at all. Every projectile they fire is solid matter accelerated to extreme velocities." "That is impossible," Commander Veltar protested. "Kinetic weapons require enormous amounts of energy to be effective in space combat. No power system could sustain such an attack." "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "I am intercepting human transmissions from their asteroid ship. They appear to be discussing their weapon systems openly." Zexthera felt a chill of dread. "Put it on speakers." The bridge filled with human voices speaking in their crude but efficient language. The translation system worked quickly to convert their words into Galactic standard. "Engineering to bridge," came a calm human voice. "Reactor output is steady at 40% capacity. We can maintain current rate of fire indefinitely." "Copy that, Chief," replied what must be Captain Chen. "Weapons, what is our ammunition status?" "We have used approximately 3% of our tungsten rod supply," another voice reported. "At current rate of fire, we can continue for approximately 250 hours before needing to resupply." Zexathara felt his mandibles drop open. The humans were treating this devastating battle like a routine training exercise. They were using less than half their ship's power and had barely touched their ammunition supplies. "Sir," the sensor operator said urgently, "I am detecting movement in other parts of the asteroid belt. There are more ships approaching." The main display shifted to show the broader tactical situation, and what Admiral Zexathara saw made his blood run cold. Across the asteroid belt, more massive structures were beginning to move. What he had taken for mining installations and asteroid processing facilities were revealing themselves to be additional human warships. Each one was built in the same impossible style as the Absolute Unit, actual asteroids converted into mobile weapons platforms. Some appeared to be hollowed-out moons. Others looked like space stations that had been modified for combat. One massive structure appeared to be an entire planetary ring system that had been turned into a single enormous ship. "Impossible," whispered Commander Veltar. "They have weaponized their entire asteroid belt." The largest of the approaching vessels was beyond anything in Admiral Zexathara's experience. It appeared to be built from a captured comet. Ice and rock fused together into a ship the size of a small moon. As it moved closer, weapon ports opened along its surface like the eyes of some ancient space-dwelling beast. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the UNSV Big Stick," came a new human voice over the communications channel. "We are moving to support the Absolute Unit. All Imperial vessels are advised to surrender immediately." Behind the Big Stick, more human ships approached. Each one was unique, built from whatever large object had been available when construction began. Admiral Zexathara identified what appeared to be a weaponized space elevator, its massive structure bristling with railguns and missile launchers. Another ship looked like it had been built from a disassembled space station, its modular components rearranged into the shape of a giant hammer. "Admiral," the communications officer said with panic in his voice, "the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. They want to talk." "Put them through," Zexathara ordered. Though he dreaded what he might hear, Captain Chen's image appeared on the main screen again. Behind her, the asteroid bridge looked exactly the same as before, as if she had not just been commanding a devastating space battle. "Admiral Zexathara," she said politely, "I hope you are beginning to understand your situation. The ship you have been fighting is just our prototype. As you can see, we have been busy in our asteroid belt." The Admiral tried to maintain his composure. "What do you want?" "Nothing complicated," Captain Chen replied. "We want you to leave our solar system and not come back. We want you to report to your superiors that Earth is not interested in joining the Galactic Empire, and we want you to understand that if you attempt to return with a larger fleet, we will be ready for you." Behind her, one of the human crew members called out, "Captain, the Big Stick is asking if they can test their new orbital bombardment system on the Imperial flagship." "Not yet." "Lieutenant," Captain Chen replied calmly, "give the Admiral a chance to make the smart decision." Zexathara looked at his tactical display again. The human fleet had grown to include dozens of massive vessels, each one larger than his flagship. His own force was down to less than half strength, and every minute of combat had proven that Imperial weapons were useless against human engineering. "Sir," Commander Veltar said quietly, "recommend immediate withdrawal. We cannot win this engagement." The Admiral knew his second-in-command was right, but accepting defeat to a primitive species would end his career and possibly his life. The Empire did not tolerate failure, especially failure on this scale. "Open a channel to Imperial Command," he ordered. "Priority 1 emergency transmission." When the connection was established, Admiral Zexathara found himself looking at the stern face of Fleet Marshal Kethvar, Supreme Commander of all Imperial naval forces. "Admiral," the Marshal said coldly, "explain why you are requesting emergency assistance for what should have been a routine subjugation mission." Zexathara took a deep breath. "Sir, the humans have developed weapons and tactics that our current fleet cannot counter. They have built warships from asteroid material that our weapons cannot penetrate. Their kinetic weapon systems can destroy our ships with ease." "Impossible," Fleet Marshal Kethvar replied. "No primitive species possesses such technology. You are making excuses for poor tactical planning." "With respect, sir," Zexathara said desperately, "I am transmitting our sensor data now. The humans have weaponized their entire asteroid belt. They have ships the size of moons. They are treating our attack as a minor inconvenience." The fleet marshal's expression changed as he reviewed the incoming data. His eyes widened as he saw the size and power readings of the human vessels. "By the void," he whispered. "What kind of species builds ships from asteroids?" "The kind that asks why not instead of why," Captain Chen's voice said suddenly. Both Imperial officers turned in shock to see that the human had somehow tapped into their secure communication channel. "Hello, Fleet Marshal," Captain Chen continued pleasantly. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Forces. I thought you might like to hear directly from us about our intentions. This channel is encrypted with quantum security protocols," Fleet Marshal Kethvar protested. "How are you accessing it?" "We asked our computer engineers to break your encryption," Captain Chen replied. "They said it was impossible with current technology. So we built better technology. Humans have a saying, if you cannot find a way, make one." The Fleet Marshal stared at her image with growing alarm. "What do you want?" "We want to be left alone," Captain Chen said simply. "Earth has no interest in joining your empire or fighting your wars. We will defend ourselves if attacked, but we prefer to focus on more constructive activities." "Such as?" Captain Chen smiled, and again there was something unsettling about that expression. "Building bigger ships and better weapons, mostly. It turns out that converting asteroids into mobile weapons platforms is quite addictive. We have some very exciting projects in development." Behind her, another human voice called out, "Captain, the engineering team wants to know if we can show them the planet cracker." "Not yet, Chief," Captain Chen replied. "I think the Admiral has seen enough for today." Fleet Marshal Kethvar sat in his command center aboard the Imperial dreadnought Eternal Dominion, 3 star systems away from the disaster that had befallen Admiral Zexathera's fleet. Before him, holographic displays showed the intercepted human communications from the Sol system, and what he heard made him question everything he thought he knew about warfare. "Database. Compile all available intelligence on human military engineering," he ordered his AI assistant. "Compilation complete, Fleet Marshal," the artificial mind replied. "Warning, human engineering practices do not conform to established galactic military doctrine." That, Kethvar thought grimly, was becoming obvious. The first intercepted transmission showed human engineers discussing their ship construction methods. What he heard defied 3,000 years of naval architecture. "The problem with traditional ship design," a human engineer was explaining to his colleagues, "is that everyone focuses on weight and speed. But what if we just don't care about those things? What if we make the ship so tough that it doesn't need to dodge anything? But the fuel requirements alone would be astronomical," another human protested. "So we build bigger fuel tanks," came the reply. "And bigger engines. And if it's still too heavy, we build even bigger engines. What about maneuverability? We attach engines to every surface. If you have enough thrust, anything can be maneuverable." Fleet Marshal Kethvar paused the recording and rubbed his temple with 2 of his hands. The humans were discussing fundamental problems of spaceship design, as if they were simple engineering challenges to be solved with more materials and bigger components. The next transmission was even worse. "Command, this is Chief Engineer Kowalski aboard the Absolute Unit," the recording began. "We have completed testing of our primary weapon systems. I am pleased to report that our Throw Rocks Really Hard approach is working exactly as intended." "Clarify Throw Rocks Really Hard," came Captain Chen's voice. "Ma'am, our main railgun can accelerate a tungsten rod to approximately 15% of light speed. At that velocity, the kinetic energy is sufficient to penetrate any known armor system. The beauty of it is that it's just physics. No exotic particles, no energy shields to worry about. Just good old-fashioned momentum transfer. And ammunition supplies? Effectively unlimited, Captain. The asteroid belt contains more projectile material than we could use in 1,000 years of continuous warfare. If we run low on processed tungsten, we can just grab another asteroid and throw the whole thing." Fleet Marshal Kethvar felt a chill run through his body. The humans were not just building impossible ships. They were approaching warfare itself from a completely different direction. Where civilized species developed elegant energy weapons and sophisticated defensive systems, humans asked a simple question: what happens if we just hit the enemy really, really hard? The third transmission made him understand the true scope of the problem. "Asteroid Mining Station 7 to Earth Command," a human voice reported. "Conversion of mining platform Delta to weapons configuration is complete. The station can now accelerate itself to combat speeds and brings 47 railgun systems online. Designation: UNSV Sledgehammer. Copy that, Station 7, came the reply from Earth. How many more platforms can be converted? All of them, sir. We have approximately 312 mining platforms, processing stations, and construction facilities in the belt. Each one can be converted to military configuration within 6 months. Begin conversion immediately. Priority goes to the largest platforms first. Fleet Marshal Kethvar stopped the recording and stared at his tactical display. The humans were not just building a few experimental warships. They were converting their entire industrial infrastructure into a mobile weapons platform. Every mining station, every construction facility, every piece of equipment in their asteroid belt was being turned into an instrument of war. Sir, his aide reported, we have received Admiral Zexathara's full after-action report. Display it. The holographic projector showed a detailed breakdown of the battle, including sensor readings from the human ships. What Kethavar saw made his worst fears come true. The human vessel that had destroyed half the Third Fleet was not even a proper warship. According to the technical analysis, it was literally a hollowed-out asteroid with engines, weapons, and life support systems bolted onto it. The armor that had proven impervious to Imperial weapons was not advanced composite material or energy shielding. It was just rock. Lots and lots of rock. Computer, analyze human defensive strategy, he ordered. Analysis complete, the AI replied. Human defensive philosophy appears to be based on the principle of make the ship too thick for weapons to penetrate. Their vessels sacrifice speed and efficiency for extreme durability. Estimated armor thickness on the primary target, 200 to 300 meters of solid rock. That should make their ships too slow and clumsy for effective combat. Negative, Fleet Marshal. Humans compensate for increased mass by installing proportionally larger engine systems. Their ships achieve adequate maneuverability through brute force application of thrust. Kethvar felt a headache building behind his eyes. The humans were solving complex engineering problems by simply ignoring them and applying more resources until the problems went away. What about their weapon systems? Human weapons technology focuses on kinetic energy rather than exotic particles or energy projection. They accelerate solid projectiles to extreme velocities using magnetic acceleration. While primitive in concept, the energy levels involved make their weapons devastatingly effective against any known defensive system. But surely the power requirements, humans, have installed multiple fusion reactors on each vessel. Rather than optimizing for efficiency, they generate overwhelming amounts of power and use it for both propulsion and weapon systems. The Fleet Marshal sat back in his command chair and tried to process what he was learning. The humans had looked at every rule of spacecraft design and decided to break them all. Instead of building fast, efficient ships with elegant weapon systems, they built flying fortresses that moved by brute force and attacked by throwing things really hard. The worst part was that it worked. Sir, his communications officer reported, we are receiving another transmission from the Sol system. It appears to be a general broadcast to all Imperial forces. Put it through. Captain Chen's image appeared on the main display. She was still sitting in her asteroid command center, looking as calm and confident as ever. Greetings to the Galactic Empire, she began. This is Captain Sarah Chen, representing the United Nations of Earth. We understand that our recent defensive actions may have caused some confusion among your military planners. Fleet Marshal Kethvar leaned forward, eager to hear what the humans had to say. We want to make our position clear, Captain Chen continued. Earth has no interest in joining your empire or participating in your galactic politics. We simply want to be left alone to pursue our own development. However, we are prepared to defend ourselves if necessary. Behind her, Kethvar could see human engineers working at stations carved directly into the asteroid walls. Everything about their technology looked crude and improvised, yet it had proven devastatingly effective. We realize that our approach to space combat may seem unusual, Captain Chen said with a slight smile. Most civilizations develop sophisticated energy weapons and advanced defensive systems. Humans prefer a more direct approach. We have a saying, when in doubt, hit it with a bigger hammer. The transmission showed images of human shipyards in the asteroid belt. Massive construction platforms were converting asteroids into warships using techniques that looked more like mining operations than military engineering. Entire rocky bodies were being hollowed out, reinforced, and fitted with engines and weapons. "We hope this demonstration has been educational," Captain Chen concluded. "Earth is willing to establish peaceful diplomatic relations with any civilization that respects our independence. However, any attempt to conquer or subjugate our world will be met with appropriate force." The transmission ended, leaving Fleet Marshal Kethvar staring at a blank screen. His aide approached cautiously. "Sir, what are your orders regarding the Sol system?" Kethvar considered his options. He could assemble a larger fleet and attempt to overwhelm the human defenses. But the intelligence report suggested that the humans would simply build more ships and bigger weapons. He could try to find weaknesses in their technology, but their approach was so crude and direct that there seemed to be nothing sophisticated to exploit. Or he could do something that the Galactic Empire had never done in 3,000 years of expansion. "Send a message to Imperial Command," he ordered. "Recommend that the Sol system be classified as a restricted zone. All Imperial vessels are to avoid human space until further notice." "Sir," his aide protested, "the Empire does not retreat from primitive species." Fleet Marshal Kethvar looked at the tactical displays one more time, showing the impossible human ships and their devastating weapons. "No," he agreed, "but apparently we retreat from species that decide the laws of physics are more like suggestions." 6 months after the disaster at Sol, Emperor Vexthul the Eternal sat in his throne room aboard the mobile palace ship Heart of Empire, reviewing reports that challenged everything he believed about galactic civilization. Around him, his advisors shifted nervously as they waited for his reaction to the intelligence briefings. "Read me the summary again," the Emperor commanded, his ancient voice carrying the weight of 3 millennia of absolute rule. High Admiral Korseth, Supreme Commander of all Imperial forces, cleared his throat and began reading from the official report. "The species known as humans have established a defensive perimeter around their solar system, using unconventional military technology. All attempts to classify their capabilities using standard Imperial assessment protocols have failed." "Failed how?" "Sir, they appear to have weaponized the concept of making things bigger until they work," the Admiral replied, his voice heavy with disbelief. "Our military analysts cannot find any theoretical limits to their approach." Emperor Vexthul leaned forward on his crystal throne. In 5,000 years of life, he had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. None had ever confused him quite like this. "Show me the latest intelligence," he ordered. The holographic display activated, showing the Sol system as observed by long-range Imperial sensors. What the Emperor saw made him question his understanding of engineering. The human asteroid belt had been almost completely converted into a mobile defense network. Hundreds of massive ships patrolled between the planets, each one built from asteroids, comets, or space installations. The largest vessels were beyond anything in Imperial records, flying mountains bristling with weapons and propulsion systems. "Computer, identify the largest human vessel," the Emperor commanded. "Designating primary target," the AI responded. "Human vessel designation, UNSV absolutely ridiculous. Estimated mass equivalent to a small moon. Primary armament, appears to be the entire ship, which functions as a kinetic projectile weapon. Explain. The vessel is designed to accelerate to significant fractions of light speed and impact enemy targets directly. Secondary armament includes approximately 4,000 individual weapon systems of various types." Emperor Vexthul felt something he had not experienced in centuries: genuine confusion. "They built a ship designed to ram other ships?" "Affirmative." "Intelligence suggests that human engineers determined that the most efficient way to destroy large targets was to hit them with something bigger and faster." The Emperor studied the display more carefully. Around the massive ramming ship, smaller vessels moved in formation. Each one was unique, apparently built from whatever materials had been available when construction began. Some looked like weaponized space stations, others resembled asteroid mining equipment converted for military use. "What is the tactical assessment?" he asked. High Admiral Korseth consulted his datapad. "Sir, our best military analysts conclude that the human fleet could not be defeated by any conventional Imperial force." Their ships are too durable to be destroyed by energy weapons, and their own weapons can penetrate any known defensive system. Recommendations? Avoid Sol system entirely, sir. Classify humans as a non-contact species and establish a buffer zone around their territory. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. The Galactic Empire had conquered thousands of worlds and absorbed hundreds of species. They had never been forced to simply avoid anyone before. What makes them so dangerous? He asked finally. Their approach to problem-solving, sir, replied his chief science advisor, stepping forward. When humans encounter an engineering challenge, they do not try to find the most efficient solution. They simply apply overwhelming force until the problem goes away. Give me an example. They're faster than light drive, sir. Most species develop elegant hyperdrive systems that fold space or manipulate exotic particles. Humans looked at the problem and decided to build an engine so powerful it just pushes the ship through space faster than light should allow. The Emperor felt a headache building. That should be impossible. Yes, sir. Humans appear to specialize in making impossible things work through sheer determination and excessive engineering. The holographic display shifted to show intercepted human communications. The Emperor listened with growing amazement as human engineers discussed their latest projects. Orbital Defense Platform 93 is now operational, a human voice reported. We have successfully converted the moon of Jupiter into a mobile weapons platform. Designation UNSV Moonshot. How mobile? Came the reply. It can achieve approximately 10% of light speed, sir. When it hits something, that something stops being there. Outstanding. What about the Planet Cracker project? Engineering team reports that we can have it operational within 2 years. Once complete, we will be able to accelerate entire planets to significant fractions of light speed. For what purpose? Mostly to see if we can, sir. Though I imagine throwing planets at people would be quite effective in combat. Emperor Vexthul turned off the recording and stared at his advisors. They are building weapons that can throw planets. Yes, sir, High Admiral Corseth confirmed. Human engineering philosophy appears to be, if it is worth doing, it is worth overdoing. They do not build one ship when they can build 100. They do not use small weapons when big weapons are available. But surely there must be limits to what they can construct. His science advisor shook his head. Sir, humans have access to the entire resources of their solar system, and they appear willing to convert all of it into military hardware if necessary. Their industrial capacity is growing exponentially as they automate more of their construction processes. The Emperor looked at the display again, showing the impossible human fleet. Each ship represented a complete rejection of civilized engineering principles, yet they were devastatingly effective. Sir, his communications officer announced, we are receiving a transmission from the Sol system. It appears to be addressed to you personally. Put it through. The main display showed Captain Sarah Chen sitting in what appeared to be a new command center. This one looked slightly more refined than the asteroid bridge he had seen in previous reports, though it still appeared to be carved directly from rock. Your Imperial Majesty, she said with a polite nod. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Forces. I hope you received our previous messages regarding Earth's position on joining your empire. Emperor Vexthul composed himself carefully. We did. Your defensive demonstration was quite impressive. Thank you, sir. We have been working on some new projects since then. Would you like to see? Before he could respond, the display shifted to show the human asteroid belt. What the Emperor saw made his blood run cold. The humans had not just been building more ships. They had been building bigger ships, much bigger ships. Vessels the size of small planets moved slowly through space, their surfaces covered with weapon systems that defied comprehension. This is our newest prototype, Captain Chen explained. The UNSV Excessive Force. It is approximately the size of your smaller moons and can accelerate to 15% of light speed. We estimate it could destroy most star systems simply by flying through them. Why would you build such a thing? The Emperor asked weakly. Captain Chen smiled that unsettling human smile. Because we could, Your Majesty. Humans have a saying, go big or go home. We decided to go big. Behind her, another human voice called out, Captain, the engineering team wants to know if we should start work on the Galaxy-class weapons platform. Not yet, Lieutenant, Captain Chen replied. I think His Majesty understands our position. The Emperor stared at the impossible ships on his display. What do you want from us? Nothing, sir, Captain Chen said simply. We want to be left alone to pursue our own development. In exchange, we promise not to share our engineering techniques with other species or use our weapons outside our own solar system. And if we attempt to invade again, Captain Chen's expression became serious. Your Majesty, we really prefer peaceful solutions. War is expensive and wastes resources that could be used for more interesting projects. But if forced to fight, we will respond with appropriate force. Define appropriate force. Well, sir, we have been working on some theoretical weapon systems that could accelerate entire star systems to significant fractions of light speed. We call it the Galaxy Cannon Project. But let's not talk about that unless we have to. The transmission ended, leaving Emperor Vexthul staring at a blank screen. After a long moment, he turned to his advisors. New Imperial Directive. The Sol system is hereby classified as a restricted zone. No Imperial vessel is to approach within 50 light-years of human space without explicit permission from this throne. Sir, High Admiral Korseth protested, the Empire does not retreat from anyone. Emperor Vexthul looked at the tactical display one more time, showing the impossible human weapons that could throw planets like stones. We are not retreating, Admiral, he said quietly. We are maintaining a safe distance from a species that builds weapons by asking, what is the biggest thing we can throw at our enemies? And then build something to throw it. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.